Mr. Chairman, thank you for being here. Your response to the indictments earlier today.
Well, this was an attack not only on the DNC, but a broader attack on our democracy. You look at the breadth and depth of this, the criminal activity. They were going after state election boards. They were going after secretaries of state's office. They got into one state election website and got information relating to 500,000 voters. This isn't a witch hunt, and this president needs to stop calling it a witch hunt. It is an attack on our democracy, and it is an attack that is going to continue because they've been doing it with impunity, and you have a president that is just ignoring it. And the reality is this attack on our democracy has to be stopped, which is why I think it makes no sense to me that he ought to meet with this guy. Putin is not a democratic leader. He wants to control this country. He's trying to undermine our democracy. He's been engaged in efforts. He's been trying to destabilize NATO. He wants to sow discord among our allies. He wants to sow division here at home. And when you see Trump trashing NATO, attacking Germany, attacking our UK allies, he's playing right into Putin's hands. And that not only undermines our democracy, it frankly makes America less safe.
Earlier today, President Trump speaking with UK Prime Minister Theresa May, saying that he's been able to secure $34 billion additional dollars to NATO. He's arguing and making the case that his disruption to NATO and advocating for other governments to pay more money into this alliance was something that the Obama administration had called for, the Bush administrations had called for. But it sounds like you disagree with that you don't think that he's making NATO stronger.
Well, I have no problem and applaud at making sure that everybody pays their fair share, but he's going far beyond that. You see what he did in his visit to the UK today and yesterday, destabilizing the situation there. You've seen his repeated attacks on Chancellor Merkel. He has a fetish with strongmen, whether it's North Korea, whether it's Putin, and he's putting our relationships with our allies at risk. Canada is suddenly our biggest adversary. That makes no sense to me, and that's the challenge we have here. This doesn't make America safer when you are destabilizing your relationships with our allies. We should be together working with our allies on one of the biggest challenges facing all of our democracies, which is Russian interference in our democracies. Right. The U.S. wasn't the only target. They targeted France. They've targeted other European nations. And the problem is this president doesn't take it seriously. And that's why when I talk about this isn't an issue simply about Democrats or Republicans or independents. This is about the integrity of our elections, and that goes to the core of our democracy.
I feel like I've asked you this several times. We're just inching closer to the midterm elections. There's been bipartisan legislation, Mr. Chairman, about better securing the midterm election systems. A two-part question for you. Do you think that we're better protected ahead of the midterm elections? And secondly, this point that I hear from a lot of progressives, they push back on the notion that no votes were impacted in the last presidential cycle. The Deputy Attorney General went out of his way again to publicly say that no mathematical count was impacted by this election. There are folks within your party who would argue that maybe the ballot box wasn't tinkered with or hacked into, but that the propaganda and the meddling led to suggested votes. I want to get your take on that point specifically.
Well, a big part of what the Russians were trying to do was sow discord within the United States, and they certainly were successful in trying to sow discord. They weren't trying to help They weren't trying to help Hillary Clinton. They were trying to hurt Hillary Clinton. They were trying to help Donald Trump get elected, and they did so by, again, sowing the seeds of unrest. We saw this in 2017.
But do you think any votes
Virginia
were changed?
Gubernatorial.
Were votes changed as a result of that? Were specific votes changed as a result of that? Do you believe, sir?
Well, again, the question you're asking is an impossible question to answer, because when you sow unrest, when you sow discord, when you're asking, when you are pitting Democrats against Democrats through very, very sophisticated propaganda operations, you end up in a situation where you've accomplished what you set out to do, which is to make sure that you hope that Democrats are feuding with Democrats. And these attacks on our election systems, again, there were 500,000 names, according to today's indictment, that were obtained, information on 500,000 people from one state. And so right now, we have to see where that goes. I think what we ought to all agree on is that this has to be an all-hands-on-deck enterprise. Look at what the focus of the Republican activity is right now. They want to make sure they're doing more unlawful voter purges. They continue to pass voter ID laws, which are solutions in search of a problem. This is a huge problem. This is an all-hands-on-deck enterprise.
Yeah.
This is not a partisan problem, and this is where our focus should be, is making sure our election systems are secure. I applaud Senator Warner and others who've been working on this. But you know what? It'd be a heck of a lot more successful if the President of the United States had some skin in the game here and wasn't trying to undermine it at every corner. And that's exactly what he has been doing.
We've got less than 60 seconds left. I want to ask you quickly for what you hope President Trump conveys to Russia President Vladimir Putin on Monday in Helsinki.
Well, first of all, I hope he cancels the meeting. This indictment is another example of why he shouldn't be meeting with somebody who's trying to undermine our democracy. If he does show up, he needs to present him with those indictments and demand the immediate extradition of all the people involved, because these were not low-level operatives. These were many of Putin's right-hand men. And that is why we need to lay a very clear marker down and say, you tried to interfere with our democracy, and on behalf of the United States of America, we're holding you accountable. He has shown no interest in doing that, unfortunately.